Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. A couple of days ago I released my unboxing and review of the new core set for Warhammer, the Old World. You can catch that here. In this video I want to do a little bit more detailed look between these two books. What's different?
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club, your event or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description.
So I have my new book and I have my old book with all the FAQs stuck in it. The new one is slightly thicker, but that's just down to the paper stock, I'm sure, because the page count is exactly the same. There's a few little changes on the front in terms of the artwork. We have a different date on there. We have the dragons on there now. So we've got the Cathayan dragon on the front, and then the Chaos dragon has been updated. I think it was a Manticore before, to be honest with you. And then a few people are talking about the Norska shield on the bottom. I just think it's a Chaos Marauder shield, but it will be interesting to see if that does mean anything. But there are a couple of little extra details on the artwork, which makes it a little bit more updated, a little bit more reflective of what's happened with all the releases of the Arcane Journals. The map is slightly updated as well, not new to us if you've been following and looking at the online map, etc., but a few of the extra things have been added because so much has been added since the game was first launched and all of those Arcane Journals were brought out. And one of the big standout things is the change to Kislev and the name Bokha. When we get to the inside, the blue's gone from the first couple of pages, but other than that, as far as I can tell, they're identical. The contents is identical. There's a removal of a credit to Creative Assembly artwork for Cathay. That's gone now. There's new artwork there, and down the bottom it no longer says Forge World at all. It just says Warhammer.com, but nothing else unexpected. Now, I feared this bit had changed and then removed Dark Elves, because one of the things I spotted earlier on when I first read this book, but it's just a change of someone's pressed return somewhere and changed the layout slightly, and the main picture at the front, the only thing that's changed is the book. But as soon as we get to this, it's practically the same, and it is the same for a very long time. All of the first section of lore is unchanged as far as I can tell, until we get to the Empire of Man front page there, and that is something that we see throughout the book, is that it's been replaced with the artwork that we now see in the Arcane Journals. And there's your Bretonnian offering, and we'll keep skipping through the factions now, but you'll have seen these images before if you own the Arcane Journals, because they're on the inside covers. There's the Wood Elves offering and the High Elves offering, and then the Dwarven offering. So it's just replacing that big full colour art. I like both. I'm glad I own both pieces of artwork, but at least it's something new now. That's something designed and made for Warhammer the Old World. So it's just bringing the game more up to date as its own thing, rather than just relying quite as much on the artwork that we used to have before for Warhammer Fantasy. This will annoy quite a few people, I think. We have the updated names as they were presented in the Marauders Arcane Journal. They're slightly different names for the 4 Chaos Gods, and I believe there's going to be 2 reasons for this. There's probably a business reason for it, and we can put our tinfoil hats on around what that might be, around splitting the IPs from Age of Sigmar to the Old World. I think we all know what the Chaos Gods are. That won't really change, but there's also a lore reason for it a little bit as well, I believe. And the names of the Bloodied Hound, the Carrion Crow, the Slithering Serpent and the Fell Raptor are kind of marauder names or human names, or their understanding of the Chaos Gods in this time period now as the story's being told. Well, the Chaos is at a low ebb at this point, and people are falling to Chaos but not quite realising that the god's name, I think. And we see that growing. We see that with the miniatures and their design looking like an evolution of the Marauders, and I think this is all part of that. Now, there may well be other text that's changed. I couldn't see it at a first glance. I've not read it cover to cover, and it's not digital, so I can't do the word search comparisons, etc. I'm not going to be using AI to do any kind of weird stuff going on here either. But it just looks like a lot of stuff has been trimmed and moved around in terms of the text, but the text is the same, but loads and loads of image changes, and where possible replacing it with artwork that we've seen since the launch of Warhammer the Old World proper, since we've had new arcane journals and there's been new releases and new artwork in there. But the text boxes look the same as me. They're just like they've been reformatted and moved around to fit the new pieces of artwork in. Other than that, it doesn't look wildly different in most cases. There are some additions, as we'll come to later on, which makes sense because we have Cathay now. Before we have that old Creative Assembly artwork that you can see there, and then we've got the grand Cathay artwork at the beginning of the chapter, and the page layout is different because we have artwork, we have more lore now. So this is where your kind of extra page comes in. The first part is exactly the same as it was before, and where you did have that double colour spread of dwarf picture, you now have an extra page here for Cathay lore on this side with the big vista in the background, and it just kind of makes its way up, reorganized, and then the pages match back up again. The different artwork again used here for the beginning of the rules, but the page number at this stage is back to being the same again. So someone's done an awful lot of work trying to squeeze them all in and get them to look right. And you see, leaving the little snip art at the bottom there is exactly the same. Now this will be a danger of getting a little bit dry here. I will talk over the video for as much as it seems like it's prudent to do so, but it is just lots of examples of new pieces of art replacing old, or old pieces of art placed in a different corner. Obviously you can see an example there of one of the actual rules bits, which I use also in the main review video, but I'm not covering the rules. It's the FAQ that we know about. It's the 1.5.2 FAQ, and those rules are in there. So occasionally that might mean that images need to change because the amount of text has changed, but in most cases it feels like the text is generally in the same place, and it's just a little bit of change of artwork here or there. Sometimes old art put in a different place, sometimes brand new art as well. It's obviously not something that's needed, but as they're updating the rule book anyway, which absolutely was needed in my opinion, not for older players, you can continue with your old rule book and your FAQs. I think it's really important for new players to be able to have a book that the rules are the reflect of the game much better, regardless of whether they've changed the order of it, which they haven't done. I wish they had done, but it's also a huge job completely rewriting the book, which is what it would have been, and I think we need to be patient and wait for the second edition for that, which is a shame. I think there's an order problem with the way the rules are told, but yeah, let's wait for second edition for that. But as you can see, lots of examples here of practically the same pages or the same text placed in new areas, and changes of artwork to reflect some of the artwork that's in those arcane journals. Just little bits like this. The text is the same, just in a different area, and some of the pictures that disappear from one page reappear a little bit later on in a different. And again, but this is getting a little bit dry, just saying, oh look, another picture change, or look, another picture change. I'll be really interested to hear what you guys think about this. As a collector, I had 2 copies of the old book, one that I stuck the FAQs in and one that I left pristine, which I'm keeping because I quite like to keep different versions of the rulebook, and there's enough changes in terms of the artwork and a little bit of extra lore. As a collector and a lover of Warhammer Fantasy, I want both books. I know many of you just really don't care about that, and that's fine as well, but how many of you will be buying the new one because of that, because it's different, even if the rules are the same, but because there are some minor changes, different artwork, and that you want to own both purely for that reason? I'll be really interested in hearing, especially as in a lot of my regular audience I know maybe like some old hammery stuff as well, because I cover that on the channel a little bit as well, and you can see my old rulebook there with all my little cutouts of FAQs over the time. So we get on to the big army shots and pictures. Now some there's no difference at all with the pictures that are there. They're the little blue borders gone around the edges, you can see, but some are completely different. And the dwarves are one of those that haven't had loads of new miniatures, but they do have a nice dwarf on shield bearers, and I wonder whether it's a plastic new miniature that's going to stay in the range, that they wanted to make sure that was represented in the book. And also the same unit there, just a different picture, different colour scheme. Maybe that red armour was something that they felt was a little bit more 8th edition or Age of Sigmar and doesn't reflect Warhammer the Old World. And of course there's big changes here with Chaos, and one of the biggest changes there is obviously all the new miniatures. That you can expect that with all the changes and all the miniatures that have been removed from the range, but it says Hordes of Chaos there, not Warriors of Chaos. So they're blending that all together, which I think is pretty cool, and makes me nostalgic as well about the days where it was Hordes of Chaos. Of course all the new miniatures have their unit shots and things, but it's all mixed together. Now we do lose a section that we had before to give us some space, so because we've got Cathay, and that wasn't in the book before at all, and so it needed some extra pages, considering the page count is exactly the same, in order to put their big army shot in and their pictures of units as well. And again, really cool for new people picking up. But then we get, as you can see, to the battlefield terrain. So the game has lost, or the book has lost, these cool sort of terrain examples, which are very old, nostalgic Warhammer for me. Sad to see them go, but I guess they weren't really as important as showing pictures of the miniatures from the current factions. And before we know it, we're back to the same page count again. Same topic, again, slightly different art towards the bottom of the pages, but again, we're back on track. And largely, we are back to the slight differences in artwork, and even slight difference in the sepia tone. I don't know if you've picked that up. I don't know if that's because of the print or because of some kind of gradation they've done actually in the publishing side of it, that they decided to make it a little bit less wispy. I really don't know, but I only noticed it by having them side by side. I didn't notice it before, just by looking at them. Nice new picture there of the dragons fighting from one of the arcane journals. But there is something more exciting coming up now, and that's the most important thing, in my opinion, is that Battle March has been added to this book as proper, so you don't need to go buy a different arcane journal for it anymore. However, it's not just Battle March, it's Battle March Plus. It's more than you get in Cetra's Fury, as we'll see as we start to compare Cetra's Fury now. The layout is slightly different. The first page of it is a lot more introduction to what Battle March is and what it means for the game. The core of Battle March is no different at all. So the restrictions on the types of units and characters, etc. Obviously, the game's already mentioned that it's expanded from sort of 450 to 750. Originally, it started at 500, then it was up to 600 odd. So that bit's the same. The layout, those two are the same for the objectives there. They're just displayed in a different way. Essentially, it amounts to the same thing. So there's nothing huge going on there per se, but there are changes. There are changes to the way things are named and the way they work. Battlefield objectives have changed a little bit. They're not just called battlefield objectives. Now there's a slightly different table to roll on. It's treasures and landmarks. Again, I think they pretty much will amount to the same thing, or in terms of overall gameplay, but there are subtle differences, and you can see how they work on the other side of the page. So your landmarks are almost a piece of terrain or something on a circular base of 100 millimeters, something to fight over. So you could roll up that on your chart if you're doing it randomly. It tells you how to place your strategic landmark. They must be in the center, but not within 3 inches of a piece of terrain or over a low linear object or something like that. And you have unusual properties, and there's another table to roll on. Tables are definitely back for this edition, aren't they? At least for the narrative, more casual side of the gaming. So you got magic in the air, righteous zeal, we're not leaving. It tells you about how to control objectives there. So there's definitely more rules based stuff here, and I probably should have already said that the treasure troves have their own set of rules as well. They're 40mm basis, so they work very much like the objectives in the main match play guide in many regards. If we look at the War of Cetra's Fury, you'll see there were 3 deployment maps. Well, that's changed as well. We now have 6. We have pitch battle, close encounter, opposed flanks, meeting engagement, mountain pass, and outflank. So we increased those as well. And there are some subtle changes as well to the way the game is won. So your victory points, you still got dead or fled, but it just refers you to the relevant page now. King is dead as well, and trophies of war. But you've got your treasure troves and your strategic landmarks on there and how you would score from them. So there are some subtle changes there, some extra things added. And I can't help wondering if a lot of that is what will be in that General's Companion for Battle March anyway. And some of you who are watching this will already know that, because someone may have done a review of it. I don't have that book, unfortunately, to compare, otherwise I'd have it out now. But my assumption will be that's what we find in it. That's what we find in that book. We do lose 3 of the narrative scenarios that were in that main rule book. That bit's cut short in order to give the pages for that battle marks section. But again, I think narrative's moved in a different way. It's now within the arcane journals. And then we are kind of largely back to the end of the rule book, the regular text, just again with lots more of new bits of artwork put in or changed and moved around in general. Nothing that I've seen that really stands out. I'm sure given a few weeks, or someone in the comments will point out this wording has changed on page 173 or something like that, but I haven't, as I said earlier, been able to verify every single word, be able to read them word for word next to each other just to double check every dot, every cross, every little full stop or whatever. And there will be something like that. I'm not going to do that either. This is probably a dry enough video as it is without me doing that, but it gives you a bit of an idea of is it just a complete reprint? No, it's not. There's been a lot of work that's clearly got into reformatting that as a publisher point of view. I don't know who does that, but that was a fair few hours worth of work reformatting that document into the book and tidying it up and making sure those FAQs fit in and it all looks nice, and adding that new information and bringing it up to date. And I think it's definitely a worthwhile venture. And as you see, you get to the end and it's got exactly the same page count as the previous one, which is no mean feat, and they've done a good job there. I'm sure people will find fault in it. I think it's well worth it. As a collector, I've got it, and for new players, it's brilliant. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I know quite a few of you are interested in more details about how different those books were after my initial review. I gave a couple of examples in that review, but this was just a little bit more of a detailed flick through and showing you some of the changes. As I've explained all the way through, that there's not an awful lot there. If you own the existing book and you own the FAQs up until the last one we had, then there's no changes. You don't need to buy the new book, but those FAQs are in there, which means less bits of paper to print out, less things. So if you haven't already got a book, this is great and much better for new players starting the game, because the other one had so many changes that there were just large swathes of paragraphs of words that had changed, and it just made it a little bit harder for new people. Now, a lot of people use the online resources to play the game anyway, and if you do, you probably don't need to pick this book up. If you're a collector like me, I'm really happy to have both, just because of the slight changes in some of the artwork and the extra lore that we saw for Cathay, and that's where most of the changes are. The layout slightly in terms of images and things, as you've just seen, but I thought it was useful going through it. Hopefully it was useful to you and help you decide whether you want to pick it up or not. So if you have found it useful and you've enjoyed the video, please give it a like, drop a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, ding that bell and hype it if you're able to, because it helps the video be seen by other people, and that really is a great way of supporting my content if you do enjoy it. Check out my Patreon as well. It's a great way of supporting the channel, in fact the best way of supporting the channel, because the finances there just really help me to continue to make content like this. I love making videos, I love doing painting tutorials and all the unboxings and all the wide range of stuff that I do on the channel, but I can only really make that many videos with the support of my patrons, because it just takes so much time to film and edit and all of those things. So thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.